Well, it says we're gonna call this meeting to order. Call the meeting to order. Start with roll call. Kim? Here. Brian? Here. I'm here. Shirley?
Here.
And Craig?
Here.
I'm also gonna ask for agenda approval, and we need to change the consent agenda, and we'll take up part C after item number 7.
So we are moving 4A and B.
4A and B, right?
Yes.
And I need a motion.
I'll make a motion.
Sorry.
Yep. How do you vote? Kim?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
I vote aye. Shirley?
Aye.
And Craig?
Aye.
Second item here is, the next item is Good Egg Days Committee, electric service at the park.
Do you want me
Yes, please.
to come up there?
Yes, wherever you're most comfortable.
Well, at home.
Me too.
I'm just here because we've had some conflicting, things about if we should charge for the electricity at the park for the vendors. We've heard yes, we've heard no, we've heard, this amount and not, it's a different amount. And so we just kind of wanted to know, so we're getting ready to send vendor forms for the food vendors.
Has there historically been a charge?
I think it has been before I started to get into this.
Is it changed with this or not?
Kind of.
Okay.
It is a chamber event, but there's.
Okay.
And I'm a co-chair, so I'm dealing with it.
Well,
But we want to kind of know, because we've heard different things, what to charge and not to charge. Maybe it's a chamber that just.
Gary, I guess my feeling, and the other board members can chime in here if they choose, but we discussed this at one point, and I think, at least what I thought we decided upon, was that if you or the chamber or whoever's doing this makes a vendor charge,
Mhm.
that whatever that charge is, you get to keep. We don't want to fool around with having to bill it out and taking our staff time to do that.
Okay.
So if you make a charge, you keep it.
So then we decide on whether we charge or not, what the charge is gonna be, and then we also keep the money.
Is that metered, Pat? I mean, it's in the park you're talking about, right?
Yes, the park, lava park.
Okay,
Did you ever hear how many kilowatts they actually use during the event?
We would have to read the meter before and after. We can figure that out pretty
and,
easy.
that might help.
I'm thinking that there's one food vendor that maybe used electricity that I know of. That's all I know. And it wasn't very much.
You might be able to help her decide what her charge should be, if she's not ripping the guy's head off.
So most of them are using generators?
There's a lot of generators, so.
But your point was not to make it a collectible for the utilities.
Right.
So that kind of, do you want that as a motion or something? So you
Yeah, can we make a motion? I didn't know if we need to revisit this every year or
That's what I was.
make a motion.
I would like you to make it some kind of a motion. I think it needs to be consistent. There's different event organizers, and if you're not gonna have any consistency,
Right.
one event organizer is gonna say, don't charge anybody, and another one might say, that there needs to be some kind of a charge for the effort that goes into it. if you can make an ordinance, or I'm sorry, a motion, I think it would put some consistency, and every group, every event organizer will have some kind of a guideline to go by, whether it's free to everybody.
Less confusion.
It's hard to do that though.
It's in our meeting minutes,
Well,
when we discussed it, that we decided to let the chamber to decide. I don't remember what night that was.
I think it was before the last Good Egg Days.
Yeah,
You guys met and decided, but
so it's already in the meeting minutes.
But there's no charge.
Right, right, it was up to the chamber
So
to.
Because we didn't want to do the bill.
Right,
right,
Just leave it at that.
yeah, if
So you've
that's
already,
okay with
you already
you,
asked Lee, okay.
okay, do we need to revisit next year again, or is this gonna be a set
no,
thing?
I think that
Okay.
it's in the minutes, so
Okay, cool.
Kim's right, if we did it in the minutes.
Yeah.
I believe that would have been back around May of '23,
Yep, I think you're right,
according to my documentation.
Okay.
okay.
Sounds good.
Meeting.
Thanks, guys.
For utilities.
Is there, Mayor, is there, so, you know, not to single anything out, but like tonight is not an events night. Does the city have a charge for vendors? Like, you got Los Altos, Ruby's, Johnny's, everybody else, property tax, sales tax, utilities, water, electric, right, on a commercial basis. Like the vendor across the street right now, is there a fee that they have to pay to set up shop like that? I'm just asking, I don't know if you know.
Ash knows the
Ash?
They do.
They get on it.
They have to, get it. Okay. I just wondered.
Yeah, you get it.
Okay. Next item is North and Middle River Watershed Management Authority. Mike White?
Yeah.
Welcome, Mike.
Yeah, glad to be here. Well, kind of glad to be here. I drove up from Indianola. I got volunteered to be here for this. My wife's on the utility board in Indianola.
Oh, the poor soul.
Yeah. And I'm a commissioner on the Warren County Conservation Board. And as of August, I became the vice chairman of the North and Middle River Watershed Management Authority. And I heard that you had some questions about it. I wanted to be real brief. We're asking for letters of support or financial donations. The reason why this authority came up as kind of organized about a year ago. Just 3 months ago, we put the articles of incorporation together. We meet on a quarterly basis. We met yesterday. And essentially, we're bringing units of government together to form a watershed management authority. We have no legislative, we don't tax. Okay, we can't go after land for eminent domain. It's just a way for units of government, whether it be board of supervisors, cities, conservation districts, to get together and on a watershed basis. Our mission is two things: flood control or mitigation and water quality. That's all we do. In 2010, the Iowa legislature enabled legislation to form watershed management authorities. I'll pass this right here. 28 of them in the state right now. I'll kind of there's 28 of them in the state. We're number 18. We cover Guthrie, Adair, Madison, and Warren County, and everything flushes out down by Carlisle. Okay, needless to say, City of Carlisle is one of our members. We roughly have 20 members. We're looking for more members. That bar is not very high. All you gotta say is, we'd like to be a member, okay? And then we will keep you informed of what this management authority is. There's a pressing date, November 17th. We'd like to have letters of support from units of government that you're supporting our endeavor. And then we have to have a grant application into the Iowa DNR. They get allocated funds from the EPA, and then the DNR takes these funds, and this year they have two grants. They're $125,000 each for watershed management grants, or watershed planning grants. Right now, there's only two watershed management authorities going for this money. We're one of them, and there's one up in Tama Toledo area. So the probability of us getting $125,000 is pretty high. Essentially, if we get that grant, then what we will do is hire a consulting company. They'll do a resource inventory. They'll have public meetings over an 18 to 24-month period. And then we'll identify the major problems for flood control and water quality in the north and middle river watersheds. That's what we're doing. So we're asking units of government to for a letter of support. There's no ties or anything like that. We're also asking if you want to, if you donate to the cause. Right now, the $125,000 grant that likely we will get, we have to have 20% in matching funds as far as in kind. So me driving here for an hour, or 100-mile round trip, and all in kind donation towards the project, and then we have cash donations, 5% come in. Right now, Polk County put in $5,000. City of Des Moines has put in $1,000. Norwalk has put in $250. So right now we've got the 5% match, $6,250. So if we get awarded the grant, we have to have it done by December 1st. December 1st we have to have it. November we have to have the grant in, and then they award the grants in December 23rd. And then after that, we can go out and solicit with RFP people who would want to do the planning. So my question to you, we've sent Sarah, you got the information from Cynthia Farmer?
Yes.
Okay. All I'm asking, number one, if you could possibly send us a letter of support. Just sign that letter. It's already made. You just fill in the blanks and go. And the other one, if you would be interested in being one of the members, like we now have 20, my guess is once we get the $125,000, there'd be some other members come on board. And city, again, supervisors, board of supervisors, conservation districts, cities, whatever. So that's my spiel. Any questions from you?
I'm not really in a financial position to be donating, but a letter of support's okay.
How much involvement, I mean, does your authority come from like the DNR, or does it come from the state of Iowa, or?
The authority itself, and this is a question, a lot of people had questions initially after 2010, who is going to be, is this authority over the DNR where they're going to come in this watershed and tell everybody what to do? No. The only authority we have is to work together and solicit other grants. Once we have a management plan, then we can go and get federal funds on a watershed basis with a higher priority rating so that we can put structures in for ponds, dams, maybe terraces, maybe go into cities, maybe put bioswale, whatever is needed to look at the biggest problem. Not, normally what's the number one pollutant by volume? Soil. We know that. Okay. And some of that may be coming off the riverbanks. So maybe we come up with buffers so that you don't, have a cost share program or you don't farm right up to the river. But there is no authority where the DNR is going to come in and tell you what to do. This is going to be a carrot approach where, okay, we're going to go for solicit funds from the government to put in these conservation measures, water quality measures, flood control measures, and then use a carrot approach, stick and carrot approach to get it done.
I'm gonna play the devil's advocate, okay? When the state of Iowa comes out here to our community and says that they somehow are interested in water quality, I have not too nice a word to say back to them, because they've not shown any compulsion to really care about cleaning up the water in the state. And when that happens, you would think, what's a guy like you care about that? Well, every time they don't do that, they don't provide clean water or show leadership in cleaning up the water, we pay higher water rates. And
And
that's
so you're
what,
getting your water from wells, correct?
we're getting ours from
Z,
Xenia.
Okay.
Moffett Reservoir.
And so, yeah, that watershed is gonna feed into the Des Moines water system, and that's where we get our water. But the state of Iowa, in my estimation, has shown no leadership in even caring about the clean water that we're supposed to have, that we pay for in our taxes, and that we pay for when we make water rate. So we have to sit out here and watch, 8, 10, 12% water rate increases on a yearly basis, simply because the Des Moines Water Works in Xenia has to spend that much more money just to clean it up.
The nitrates.
The nitrates, the phosphates, whatever. And
I understand. My background, first out of college, I was a district soil conservationist. I worked in five counties total. And then in the state, I was an agronomist. I've done a lot of research on water quality and pesticide and fertilizer and all that. There's been a lot of funding for water quality research. There's also a lot of money goes in the Des Moines lobe for nutrient reduction research for programs that reduce those nutrients going into the Des Moines Water Works. And being the commissioner of Soil Conservation District, I know there's a hell of a lot of money goes in for soil erosion control and water quality. And I'm also on the state committee on the state conservation district committee.
but it never seems to get any better.
Well,
And we tell everybody, whether it's somebody in town putting fertilizer on their lawn, or whether it's a municipality putting raw sewage into the river system, or it's farmers putting nitrates in the system. All of those are guilty. But nothing ever, and then they say, well, we're working with a voluntary approach.
yeah.
And I understand that you don't want to be able to tell people what to do, but we gotta be smart about it too. And we're not being real smart about it, in my estimation. Now, my good friend Doc Wilhelm back here put me onto a book, and I'm sure you've read it, by Chris Jones,
I haven't read one like that.
the swine, what is it, the Swine Republic.
Yeah.
And Doc told me, John, when you read that, it's gonna make you mad. And he's right.
Some of us remember, I'm a farmer, okay, back in the day where the hogs and the cattle were running through the creeks. And there was no program, there was no manure management plans or anything. They just crapped in the creeks and it went down. And the banks were wearing off. I think we've come a long ways there. I guess we're not, it's not perfect, but I do believe we're moving the marker along farther as far as water quality and soil conservation is.
So what you're telling me is that we just have to sit here and continue to raise our water rates to keep clean water.
What I'm telling you is I'd like to have you support the North and Middle River.
Not to change everything.
Yeah, that's what
But his point's
and I'm
valid.
not telling you, I'm asking
His
you.
point's valid.
I'm not here to support what's been done in the past, but again, and I'll guarantee you, if I come in here and say, we're gonna do this by mandatory measures, nobody would vote for it.
And I probably wouldn't either,
Yeah.
Mike. But there comes a time when volunteer doesn't work anymore. And it really hasn't. I mean, we've had that since 2010 or 2012, something like that. And
2010 has been the water management.
well, and we haven't cleaned up even 10% of the water yet. And at some point in time, my water customers have a right to say, when is this gonna happen?
We're trying to make it happen. This is one way we can we'll be on a higher priority stick up there for federal funds to do the water quality and flood mitigation in these two rivers and the watersheds. Yeah, that's all I'm saying. It's
a
very
beginning.
difficult.
Is it closer to
And
getting?
your point is,
done?
when does, I mean, it's just another layer.
Just another layer, it's just,
Yeah, I totally agree with what you're trying to do. His point is, it's a circular reference.
Yeah.
That's.
I mean,
it's not-
you know, you go back a couple of years when Joint Waterworks, you know, sued the conservation, in, what was it, Calhoun and Buena Vista counties? And the court threw it out, said, oh, it's no big deal. It is a big deal.
I used to be the DC in Calhoun County. That was the flattest county in Iowa. And more child districts and
I'm
many
from Lake
others.
City, so I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
So he's just asking if we could support him by a letter. Does it mean?
All I'm asking is you support the Water Management Authority. And again, I know, I'm a district commissioner. Anytime you work with the federal government, the bureaucracy gets this deep and you come to a crawl. Our state programs are a hell of a lot more efficient than the federal programs are. But unfortunately, the money that we need is coming from the feds. And they would like to have us go to a wider management as far as watershed management to get these funds.
If we did this, if we supported this, what kind of reporting would we get on a monthly, on a semi-annual basis? I mean, what kind of reporting can we expect?
We're pretty young. Our articles of incorporation was summer, but I would imagine anytime you get a grant, there's usually a minimum of a quarterly report of progress. This is all public information. You could ask for that information at any time, or if you remember, you'd be on the email list getting what's going on.
Board members, any comments?
The letter hurt us.
What's that?
Does a letter
The
hurt?
letter is just the
Pat, what do you
support.
think?
I think we go forward with a letter.
Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
Actually, second, Craig, how do you vote? I vote aye. Shirley,
Aye.
Craig,
Aye.
Kim,
Yeah.
and Brian. Yep. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Well, even though he gave me a hard time, I really enjoyed this experience. So,
Thanks.
Sarah, you'll get to Cynthia with
Yeah,
that.
so I'll get it put together, I will scan her copy and then I'll
Okay.
drop a hard one in there.
I have my doubts that hat, but.
Yeah. Hey, I retired from it. I hope they last a long time. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next item is 7A, Schneider and Associates. Jeff?
Good evening, everyone. I kind of want to start this off, just to get the conversation started. My name is Dave Sturm. I'm the business unit leader of the Atlantic office. And I just wanted to reiterate to the board that Snyder & Associates is committed to getting this tower issue fixed with a practical solution for the board. So over the past few weeks, Jeff, and we also brought Darren Jacobs along with us tonight, through many options, going through all the different pluses and minuses of all the options. And Darren would like to go through those with you. Darren is our lead water resources engineer out of our Ankeny office. He's got a construction engineering degree from Iowa State, where he worked in building dams, building treatment plants, and other heavy construction projects before going to the private sector side, where he worked for a competitor of ours for about 10 years, and then he started working for us in 2007. So,
Who designed the water tower?
what's that?
Who designed the water tower?
Who designed it?
Yeah.
Jeff did.
Okay. So that's, yeah, I just wondered, because that's, that's the height thing, so I was just confused. So anyway, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, Jeff, and with the assistance from a few guys in Ankeny. So, but Darren is our lead guy, and he wanted to present all these options to you. So, if you guys would listen to what he has to say, thank you. Thanks, Darren.
Yeah, thanks, everybody.
I got involved to kind of provide a technical review and a technical backing of how to proceed. I'm kind of a technical guy, and been doing water about 30 years. In fact, the water that you guys talked about earlier, I'm one of the chief designers on the LD McMullen water plant over there for Des Moines Water Works. So ironically, it gets pumped out here. It's kind of cool to see that. So I'm kind of a technical geeky guy, so I want to kind of go through some thoughts. And I put together the matrix that you have behind you on the wall, mostly because I have to do that so I can figure out what things look like. And so I kind of went through and I said, all right, so what would we do for an alternative? And then I said, is the alternative feasible? And I know that's a little bit, it isn't so easy to say plus or minus 10, but is it a reasonable, okay, we could do this. Is it practical? Like, ultimately, whatever happens, you folks have to live with it forever, or maybe not forever, but for a long time. So we want to make sure it's not something stupid. And it's also got to be practical. Can you build it? And can we make it work? One thing that I really thought was important was a level of risk. So what in the world is risk? Well, the risk in my eyes, and this comes from a person that used to build things like this. I don't know if you remember a number of years ago, the town of New Providence bought a used water tower. And it actually made the, oh my gosh, super duper videos that you see on TV, and it was one of the tragic ones. And they were putting up the used water tower, and in the middle of that, one of the crane outriggers started to settle, and the crane ended up going over. It was picking up the bowl of the tower, and the crane ended up going over, and it killed the operator, and it injured a couple of people on the ground. It destroyed the tank. It was really it was tragic. I knew the people who owned the crane, and I'm like, oh geez. So that's the way I see risk. Is it something that could hurt somebody, hurt something? So risk. And then I said, can we get the 400,000 gallons of storage that you're after? And does it perform reasonably well under all the conditions that you need to use it under? And then one of the things I really wanted to make sure of is, with you getting most of your water from Xenia, is Xenia able to service it? And what does it do to their side? And one column I should have put in there probably was a schedule as to how rapidly you could do this. And I didn't put it in there, my fault. Not enough of a geek, I guess. You need one more column. But I think that's an important one too, because if you have to wait forever, it doesn't do you any good either. So what I'd like to do is kind of go through these, and this is kind of raw notes out of my brain as to what could we do here. And alternative, I'm going to start at the bottom really. Not that they're in any real order. It's just that those are probably the ones that people are like, oh yeah, I got that. So one of them would be to reduce the height of the new tower. And that is probably possible to do. Is it practical? I would argue probably not that practical. It takes a really, really big crane, and it takes design like from the tank manufacturer.
So
because
just tear it down and build a new one like we already had planned on.
Yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's
not on this list.
and that's a good one we can talk about. So as you go through it, you kind of go, is it possible? Is it reasonable to do? And when you change the tower size, that means the manufacturer, because those towers are manufactured, they have to go through and check it all. The risk level, I would call that a pretty risky one because it takes a big crane. People are like, well, there's cranes all over. They work on these wind generators. Yeah, but they're all assigned to Mid-American Energy or somebody. So it might take a while to get a machine that big. I can tell you, I worked for a pretty big contractor, and we had nothing remotely capable of that. It would allow the use of the storage. I promise I'll keep moving faster as we figure some of these out as we go through this. It would perform okay. It does not increase your pressure. I know your long-term goal is to put a little more pressure in the system, and that doesn't do it. Being okay with it? yeah, Xenia can service it, not a problem there. So on the other side of that would be 4A, and that would be to raise the existing tower to match the new tower. Okay, feasible? Yeah, it could be done. Towers are raised. I looked at several of them in Fort Dodge, and we ended up deciding that it was technically not that practical to do, so they became ground storage reservoirs with pumps instead. The new towers were taller. So Fort Dodge, for example, has one pressure zone, and they've got 5 towers, and 2 of the towers are really pumped, and 3 of them, the other way around, 2 of them are actually running on gravity. So that one is about the same as the first one, except there's one big risk piece of this that I really would say is, in my eyes, pretty risky. That tower, I think, is about 60 years old. If they're cared for, towers can last a long, long time. I've taken some down that are 100 years old. That one looks like it's been cared for pretty well, but what we don't know, 2 things. That's got tube steel columns. A lot of times in those tubes, you get condensation or you get a water leak, and it doesn't take much. A little bit of a weld that wasn't complete. You get water accumulation in those tubes. And 2 things happen. Sometimes it freezes and it splits the bottom of the tube, which is a big deal structurally. It takes away a lot of the strength of those tubes. The other thing it does is corrodes inside of there. And I do a lot of boiler work, so I spend a lot of time with UT equipment, and I don't know that I could confidently take a UT even on that and go, this looks really good, because you get this spot. You might have a spot over here that's not so good. So I would classify retrofitting that tower as pretty risky. Just a lot of things. And the other part of it is that tower has foundations which may or may not meet current design standards. I mean, it was built 60 years ago, and our design standards have changed considerably. It also has steel that, the design of that may or may not be meet today's standards. And it very, very well may easily meet it, because I know a lot of us are probably sitting here going, well, geez, this old stuff we bought is way better. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. So those are all unknowns. The deterioration of the steel, boy, that makes me shake. I just, having torn stuff like that down, and you get inside there and you go, ooh.
There's no type of way that you could check the steel as far as a penetrating, I mean, they do.
Not
it in
easily.
case- Okay.
Not easily. You can do
I
it.
appreciate this grid and everything, but I'm sorry, it's just, I don't know, it does nothing for me, because you guys made the problem, and so your job is to fix it.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yep.
And not one suggestion was made for these last 2 in your first months of no activity, no emails, no responses to these people here that are accountable to our rate customers. So this is nice that you sent it to us an hour a month, but it doesn't do me any good because there's no solutions to it. Because you're telling me it's not practical, both of them.
I'm telling you, it's.
No, that's what you're telling me, you said it's not. That's what you're
It's
telling me.
different than the other ones. If it's okay, I'd love to go through the rest and kind of give you what, because it's just, if you'll humor me, because I'm kind of geeky like that. There's a couple of other ones that are similar in, and we looked at that. I said, well, could we just run a dual pressure? Because I know you have an area that has some low pressure. The taller tower gives you a little more pressure. And that can be done. It takes a fair amount of piping interconnections to make that work. It can be done. I would classify the risk as about medium. And the reason there's a medium risk, you put in pipe. When you're putting in pipe, the possibility of digging through a fiber line or something is always there. The other part of it is you got to bore in railroad tracks. And I'm sure if you guys have worked with the railroad, you know they're difficult at best.
What do you recommend we do?
Well, I'm thinking I'm kind of working that way. The next thing would be to run what they call an altitude valve. An altitude valve, sometimes it's called a control valve. Sometimes people refer to them maybe incorrectly as a pressure reducing valve. It's a valve that fills and draws a tower. We're using a couple of them, for example, over in Atlantic. Atlantic's getting a new ground storage tank, and they have an underground tank, and the old underground tank is in poor condition. So now we're gonna fill this tank, and there's an altitude valve. This tank gets filled and maintained full. The ground tank, the one that gets high service pumped out of to go to the distribution system. Valve opens, allows water to get in the buried tank, gets pumped out. And when the buried tank hits a certain level, the valve closes or opens. So they're used pretty commonly. That would be a relative work together. And in a nutshell, you still have 400,000 gallons of storage, and it works as, the two of them would work as one larger tank.
So what's the warranty on these?
Probably you could get whatever warranty you wish. They don't normally take a lot of work. They don't take a lot of maintenance. I'm gonna lie to you if I said they never do.
Cause we were
'Cause they
told last month if we went with the valve, it was 2 years.
Well, I'm sure we could figure out a better
It's gonna have to
arrangement.
be at least 20 years or more.
I don't think you could ever reasonably get that because the tower lasts you
But
100
we
years.
reasonably contracted with you to design a water tower,
I-
equal height to what we're
I
at,
understand.
and you're coming up with Band-Aid solutions to get out of it.
Yep.
That's the way it is. Like it or not, don't care.
Could I ask one question? Barry?
Yes, yes.
This is my big concern. When Jeff first talked about the altitude valve, it seemed like that was a pretty good way to do it. As we looked into the exchange out of the old tower in the winter to keep it from freezing and the summer to keep it from getting stale, because my understanding, talking to some other outfits that have multiple towers, is maybe a third of the tower a day to ensure that you're not gonna have freezing. So it seems like the swing of how far we would have to bring down the tank every day from the full level, which would give us full capacity, to a low enough level to exchange a third of this old tank out. We're talking about an 8 or 10, 12-foot swing of
Sure,
water,
Sure.
which, is gonna give us, some days, we'll hardly pump any water at all. Other days, we'll pump a huge amount depending, and our capacity will vary a lot depending on the day. Some days, we will have 400,000 gallons. Some days, we might have 250,000 gallons in our system, so we have varying capacity. So what's the plan for getting good exchange out of this old tower?
I think that's a great question. So most of the rural waters tend to use this kind of a system, either altitude valves or pressure reducing valves. Rathman Regional Water, where I've done a fair amount of work, they typically run their tower they fill it with a pump, so they maintain pretty much a flat level. In the wintertime, they allow it to swing, and they probably swing at 5, 10, 15 feet, depending on how cold it is. The city of Boone tends to swing theirs about 10 PSI, which would be about 23 feet. It's 2.31 feet for every 1 PSI. So when you think about it in terms of that, if it's 10 PSI, you're swinging 23 feet.
Just again, so I can,
Yeah, no.
so if we got what we paid for and there were no issues, would we be here right now discussing this?
Well, I think I would still want to talk with you because you
About
have,
valves that are.
no, it's not so much valves, but his question about swinging the water.
Okay, but that wouldn't even be a subject.
I
If the
think
water
it
towers
would be.
were equal, we would not be having this discussion in a public meeting.
You probably would be because you really need to swing that tower to keep your water fresh. So the other half of that,
So the valves were a part of the design of the original.
the swing in the towers has to,
Okay.
because you gotta move the tower, you gotta move the water in order to get it in and out. Here's the other half of it. Rathman Regional Water, much like the water you guys get from Xenia, is chloraminated. Chloramine is used because it stays in the system a long time. So Rathman typically, on their biggest towers, they let the towers run for about a month, and this is in the summertime. Summertime is when you probably would lose the most. Once a month, they pull the tower, they let it swing a long way to make sure they're getting exchange. And that's how they run their towers. So anytime you have a lot of capacity, whether you're Des Moines Water Works or somebody else, you have to swing those towers to get fresh water. I think that's a very very important thing. And this essentially, if you put an altitude valve on it, makes it like one big tank. So yes, you have to manage it like one larger tank. That's really the bottom line. And that was really the case all the way along. So that really is the thing. Did I sort of answer your question?
Well, yeah, I mean, basically, I'm just making sure I understood that essentially that's what we're gonna be doing, is we're gonna have a very,
Yeah.
if we, and I'd hate to interject, as maybe the board isn't even interested in the next valve. I just wanted to,
Not the same time, it should be.
that's my understanding, is this gonna have a massive swing compared to what we have now. This is like a
Yes.
4 or 5 foot swing. Now we're gonna have double that.
Right. I think that's a really good question though, because it is a big deal. It is important. And we oftentimes swing those towers different in the summer versus the winter. Some towers, we even take them out of service in the wintertime when there's not a lot of demand. I'm working on one right now for Xenia that they take out of service in the winter because they can't move enough water through it. But you do have to swing them. And that's pretty common.
Okay.
Yes.
What you had just said before that does not make any sense
Okay.
because about this valve, because you said that's how it was supposed to be. Why wasn't the valve put on it to begin with if that was supposed to be how it was supposed to be? Now you're wanting to put a valve on.
Good question. If the towers are both here, you're still gonna swing from here to here in both
Right.
towers. And you have to do that, and you're gonna have to swing a bigger volume, a higher amount to keep them fresh, okay? If the towers are like this, it's still the same, it's just that the zone is here instead of in the middle. That makes sense?
Well, what you're saying is that's how it was supposed to be. Well, there was never no talk about a valve before being on it, but you're more or less saying there should have been, they should have been involved in it.
Not so much the valve.
Am I getting it?
I think, Kim, you made the point last month when we were talking about this. You made the point that for them to have to put more equipment on this tower is gonna cost us more in maintenance.
Exactly.
And so they put a valve on it when they built it. What I'm hearing is that we're gonna have more equipment, which is gonna require more maintenance.
Exactly.
Yes.
So why should we have to do the maintenance? Why should we have to deal with this when you guys screwed up? Or excuse my language, messed up.
That's okay. Fair enough.
I mean,
Fair enough.
really, come on.
Fair enough.
Like Brian said, an hour,
Yeah.
15 minutes before our meeting, we get this. What is it really telling us? It's not telling us nothing.
It's still
You
gonna be
guys-
our choice of how we choose between this.
What if we don't want none of these?
I asked,
You
I have
know,
been past relationship with Forrest. Can you share some experiences when you've raised towers?
We did raise Waukees water tower, but it's very similar to Stuart's tower.
Okay.
We have done that.
And how long ago was that?
That was quite a while ago.
And how old was that tower?
Pretty old.
But they do it when it was a newer tower at that time.
No,
No,
It
it
was
was
older
existing old tower and they raised it
They have a
intentionally.
base.
and did they have problems?
Four-legged tower.
They did not.
This one.
Yeah.
No, I guess,
The old one.
Yeah,
I
that was,
guess
it was just like this. The legs, it's still there.
Frustration that we have.
I get it.
How do I feel that you give us your recommendation
Yeah.
and we can talk?
No, we use the same
Would you be
base
able to do that?
raise it.
Yes, we could.
Let's go ahead and do it.
well, I have a comment. Brian, go ahead.
I don't
So-
Yeah.
So to me,
It doesn't fit.
Forrest, are there other alternatives here besides raising the old one, shortening the new one, building a new one? Is there anything else that can be done to equalize these besides these higher maintenance, not long-term solutions that match the life of a water tower that our utility customers pay for, that don't add over? There's
No,
something
the
I-
solutions that are being presented are good solutions.
I guess, you know, and I've had some discussions with others as well. And comment that I keep coming back to is if we lower the new tower then we get what we paid for. And yeah, it's gonna be expensive and it's gonna be, it could be risky, but we didn't put ourselves in this risk situation. But to get what, and that's my concern here, is I wanna get our ratepayers what they paid for. And to me, now, yeah, you could raise the new one, but the people I've talked to have a concern that completely rebuild the foundation under that tank because they're angled legs. And whether you can get that done properly, I don't know. But it seems like the simplest solution to me is Brian's suggestion to tear that one down and put up a new one, or attempt to lower it and get us what we paid for, because we paid to have those two towers be at equal height. And when we get to that, then our ratepayers should be satisfied. I would be.
The downside of that is you don't get a, and maybe that's not that important to you.
But then we weren't gonna get it in
Was
the
that
beginning
supposed to be in
anyway.
the original design, a boost of pressure? Like, I mean,
It never was?
The pressure always is based on the height of the tower.
okay, so if they were equal, we wouldn't got a boost of pressure.
That's correct.
Okay.
You get a boost in storage, but not a boost in pressure.
Okay, but that's what we had agreed to, contracted for, and I don't know if we're in compliance with USDA financing, that's how exposed this can be. So, you know, I mean, all the other, that's fine, I get it, but the lack of communication and like suppression of, you know, not facing issues is unacceptable. I was trying to be the technical person, and I know you get that. And to give you, here's the stuff. Here's the way I see it as being, we can do these things, and here's the implication of it. I'm not familiar with the RD stuff, I'm not. But my big deal is, how can we technically make it work? If there's a way to manipulate this on this value, and there's quality, and, you know, no additional overhead longer, that's not to talk about, that's not what we paid for, and so, you don't answer it, raise your hand, if you got it.
Water tower. When this is already built and it's already too high, why should we get stuck tearing it down and making a new one? This is not fair for the city of Stuart or all these people sitting up there. I agree with Brian right there. You're just gonna put a Band-Aid on it, stick a Band-Aid on it and say, well, okay, it's good. No, it's not good. And I'm very disgusted with it myself. I think, this is just my opinion, your company designed it, your company built it. Your company messed up. It's your fault. You need to pay for it, tear it down, rebuild it, or else we need to go somewhere else. Or do something else. But now, it sounds like to me, we gotta start all over again to get it right. And this is gonna cost people money, I see that, but why should it cost us money?
That's
Thank
good.
you for your comments. Go ahead.
I think that's a fair statement. I mean, it is, we want this thing to work for you.
So I'll go back to the same thing that we're trying to accomplish tonight, which is what's your recommendation to it, and we can discuss it with the council, if it's acceptable or not. So
Sure.
we'll be able to make decisions about your recommendation.
This is coming from the technical side of, this has nothing to do with anything other than how does it technically work? I'd put an altitude valve on. Why would I do that? Because we've got hundreds of them in rural water systems, and you never hear about them complaining about them not working. It's a rugged, reliable system. It works. And here's the other piece of that. If I were gonna build a brand new system, brand new, and I was gonna put 4 towers in that system, I'd put an altitude valve on every one of them.
But why wasn't that offered in the original design?
These were so close together that there shouldn't be a lot of flow difference. But anytime you have them in the system, I think that's a fair question. Let's do, I don't know, City Council Bluffs. They run altitudes on, they have several layers, levels. They run altitudes on all of them because guaranteed, one of those tanks is going to fill faster than another one, even though they're at the same elevation. This one's got a quicker trunk main from the high surface pumps or whatever. So if I were gonna go out, clean slate, put an altitude on every one of them. And that's what we do a lot of times on the rural waters. They pump so far, and then everything gets filled at the same elevation.
Elevation valve and altitude valve are analogous in your.
Yeah, think of them the same.
Okay.
Yeah, control valve, elevation valve, altitude valve, all the same.
So if we were gonna put an elevation valve on this, which one would you recommend?
Well, the standpoint, let's talk about simplicity and ruggedness versus control. If it's solenoid controlled, you can see in the SCADA system, the control system, you can say, okay, I want this on, and you can see that it's on. And then you can say, oh, I want this off, and you can see that it's off. And you can say, oh, I want to override this, and I want it on. Even though the tower is full, I can turn it on. I don't know if you guys have the remote or not, but you can do it from your house. If from a complexity standpoint, it's electrical in the system and put solenoid valves in the system. And anybody that's been around a solenoid valve, you know, I would not like to deal with them because they do fail, and they do not open always. They have a limited lifespan. A mechanical one is adjusted with a wrench, and that's the way I would always go first. Wrench. You set the level, you lock it down, and it stays there. You don't know the downside. You don't know what the elevation of the water is. You do not have easy control to say, I want to override this. But where do they override them? Places like Sioux City, you know, they just pump to them, and the altitude valve fills it, and when it's done, it's done. That doesn't mean you can't get an elevation in the tank. Back to your SCADA, you just don't have control of the valve. So there's up and down. They both work well, but solenoids don't last forever. So being the simplicity kind of minded person, I would go away from solenoid because of the simplicity. The other part of this too is something to think about is schedule to get use of this. If you said, gee whiz, the only thing to do is move the elevation of the tower, you might wait a year to get a crane. Altitude valve is probably weeks out, if that. and could be either placed in the pit that's out there. And I think maybe that pit's a little small. So maybe it goes in a new pit that's bigger, better access, better everything. But you could have that probably in a reasonable amount of time. If you decided that, you said, gee whiz, dual pressure system's the way to go, I could probably have you a railroad permit in about 9 months, to get the boring underneath the railroad. So purely from a schedule kind of standpoint, ignoring everything else, that's probably a schedule.
So which row are you talking, or which option, 1A, B, C?
Like if you went with any of the ones with an altitude valve, those aren't on the shelf, but they're close. If you went to a dual pressure zone, 2A and 2B, and by the way, if you did decide to do that, you would probably, this is the way rural water works. You'd fill the high tower, and then you'd have a pressure reducing valve into the lower tower.
And I think I had a conversation with Ben, that's not, just. Manage this, it's not something that.
And that would be my question here, with this kind of system, we did this, how much more work is going to entail for you guys
Keep in mind is plan this out was increased capacity. For us, it wasn't really with the end goal of increasing pressure. It was increased capacity. One tower so close together at the same logistic capacity because we may risk ground storage just to replace that. If we have the altitude valve, we'll never get away from the fact that we're going to have quite a bit of capacity depending on the day. Pretty much utilize our full capacity or close to. The capacity has been changed quite a bit day to day based on where we are fill cycles of the water source.
Correct me if I'm wrong, this is the weighted operations. So I think Xenia delivers 350 gallons a minute to you under contract. And that's the most they can give you. So pretty much you probably would be filling all the time. Based on what I understand about Xenia's system, they kind of send you most of the time, all day long, pretty much, isn't it?
Well, it depends. This will make for some fill cycles, but an all-day fill cycle.
Right.
So I don't think we worry about going over our capacity because of the rate we're getting it. We could run we could fill all the time, and we're not going to go over that 500,000 that we are allotted. But yeah,
if we get that fixed. So I don't think time is it's not for me, time is not a big issue. It's not coming out of the back, it's these guys do all this planning and prioritize this financing. Get this low interest rate, it's a 40-year obligation. Well, I mean, so.
Okay, we can take one step at a time. Now. So we got your recommendation, so from 1A, B, C, D. So that's your recommendation. Then ask for the second question, which is not your recommendation, it's what we see. The cost will be covered by you. Yes. Okay, and then I assume we need a lifetime warranty. I know.
I think really that's for you folks to talk about.
Yeah.
What makes you comfortable?
Well, that's, I'm sure nothing's gonna make us comfortable, to be honest.
Right. I get it.
But you see the public opinion and you see everybody's opinion. But we wanna get something that we don't have the customer comment on us.
Right. Right.
You need to make the best informed decision. That's why we're discussing all the options with you. We wanna make sure that we leave here, you got some of the recommendation and some of the requirement, not recommendation. We are going to define it as a recommendation. You recommend it from A, B, C, D, and you will consider that you talk about it, but our requirement is you pay for everything, lifetime warranty, and I think that board would like to add more. Brian, we want to add more?
I have no desire to do a valve unless that's something that's gonna, that improves pressure, Ben, is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, technically that could improve the pressure, yeah, if we fill this tower, you know, it is gonna raise the pressure.
All I'm saying is I want built as designed,
When
or
it's-
excuse me, built as expected,
full.
not as designed.
Yes, and that's what
That's
we're
right.
gonna sign off on.
So,
Yeah.
When it's full, it's not gonna be full.
We do that, right?
And if I were going to operate this with your current demand, I would operate it just like I do today. I'd let Xenia pump 350 gallons a minute all day long. Now and then I would swing the tower. Rathman has really massive towers and they only swing them once a month. So.
John had a valid point that specifically, the time frame is not the requirement because this was built for expansion and growth of the community. And that's what everybody planned for. So, I mean, it's not my skill set to say raise an old one or lower a new one. That's not for me to determine. But you guys gotta get that figured out because that's where I'm at, because that's where we should be at. And I understand your concern about dealing with an old one. I do, that makes sense. But if you have to shorten a new one or tear it down and build a new one, that to me is not my problem. So.
And quite honestly, that's why I'm here. I want to give you the technical side of this.
And we appreciate you being
Yeah,
here.
absolutely.
Well, I appreciate you listening.
We respect your opinion, but we have to, and the board has to answer.
Totally understand.
Yeah, so good, we have this conversation, I think Greg has put.
Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Yeah.
So we go with an elevation valve. So what does that look like from a piping schematic standpoint? So we've got the elevation valve in. Are we gonna have to have any sort of additional shutoff valves in line to help provide any maintenance to that? Is that already basically what would be there based on the current design of the tower? I mean, what else additional beyond the maintenance valve or beyond the elevation valve would we be having put in?
That is an excellent question. I would definitely want to make sure that we had an isolation valve ahead of and behind. Had to, and I would say that no matter what it is. If you ever have to work on it, and coming from the farm, I know you're gonna have to work on it someday. Just so you kind of understand what the thing looks like. And one of this size is probably about that long, and about so tall. Is that kind of? I know for a lot of folks, it's like, what in the world is this thing looking like? But that's what they look like. And that happens to be a mechanical two-way flow, fills the tower, empties the tower. And that's what we would use in like ground storage reservoirs as well. That's what they physically look like. And it would, probably about that long, about that tall. And probably weigh about 400 pounds, I would guess, at that size. So there's already valves out there that are good, I probably wouldn't add another one, because it's one more thing you gotta deal with. But I would think you'd wanna be able to isolate it.
Correct.
Always. And I would always say that.
So I don't know if we needed anything, if there would just be isolation valves along with that, or if there'd be anything else that would be needed for that.
It really ought to be put in a nice vault.
The pit, yes.
Yep, and then the debate would be, does it go in the existing pit, which I they're small. And if that's the case and you're like, I don't like being in there, okay, put it in, we'll get you a bigger one that actually fits what you need. I still understand that getting in a vault is still a confined space entry potentially. And I understand that it's not easy to work on. Totally get it.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, so my next question would be, so going back to kind of some of Ben's concerns and talking about how the tower should have operated if it was designed to the correct or if it was installed in the correct elevation. So we're talking, we've got the two towers under normal conditions. They both would have basically had equal pressure and they would have been drawing and filling pretty much simultaneously. I mean,
correct.
We're gonna have obviously probably a little bit of swing, but it's gonna be pretty much simultaneous draw.
Right.
So
right.
with the elevation valves, just help me understand, are we gonna have, the tower is gonna have significant swings comparatively speaking, or are they still gonna pretty much draw at the same time?
Very good question. It depends how you want to operate it. If you have, if you all been to Ames, you see those big towers that Ames has with the really, really tall vertical sidewall, that's because they swing the towers a long way and they want to have capacity. So imagine that this tower, two towers, are really the same as one because that valve makes them one. So you're running, you may only want to run in the top foot of the tall tower, and you can do that for weeks and shouldn't really have much of an issue because it's chloramine. And with the amount of water you turn over every day, that's important too. So when you draw it down, you draw down first the tall tower and then you draw down into the shorter tower. Based on Xenia's records at this point, I'm not seeing you drawing your towers very much because you can't. Because you just have so much demand all the time that pretty much the 350 gallons a minute, is keeping up, but not a lot more.
That is now, that doesn't mean it's gonna wait 10 years.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It very well probably will change over time. And someone also said, and I don't remember who it was, said that apparently that purchase agreement is gonna change from Waterworks and, because that comes, One Waterworks, Warren Rural Water, Xenia, you guys. And apparently they've had a pump station that wasn't able to deliver more than about 350 gallons a minute. And I don't know if they're changing the pump station or what, but there was a reference to the ability to change the way it flows. Not real clear on what that was at the time. So as you grow, that would be a more important thing. But if you wanted to just say, we're gonna run the same way as we do today, you could do that. It would be nice to be able to pull down into the lower tower, but it would be no different than having a tower with a much taller vertical section from a hydraulic standpoint. Rathbun, I keep going back to Rathbun because of the way they operate. They have some huge towers, and once a month, they shut the pumps off and they pull that tower down a little further than normal on a convenient day. And then they fill it back up just to make sure they're getting the turnover. And they do that on a 30-day basis. So they're holding residual for 30 days in the summer and they're running chloramine. And you guys are getting chloramine whether you want to or not because it's coming through the rural water system. If you were running free chlorine, I'd say, ooh, that's a problem because it would not stay in those towers very long. And we fight that in towers all over the place. So, and then of course you have icing concern as well. And you have to be able to move those towers up and down for warm water. Otherwise you have a huge popsicle.
Guess what I'd like to recommend and have the board think about is, like Brian said, we got this about an hour before the meeting, and we really haven't had a chance to absorb this.
Yeah, we need time and.
I would like to suggest that we, if you wanna have a special meeting, we can do that. If not, we can do it at our next regular
December
meeting.
meeting.
But with the
I
possibility,
prefer, I'm with you, I prefer a special meeting, this doesn't need to, I mean, to me, this is clear cut. That's just my own personal perspective, I'm not talking to one taxpayer, utility customer that has said anything different. And so I guess, I'm with you, we just got this information, but I'm with you on the special meeting because, this is a.
The only thing I'd like to add is, we will go to another meeting to make decision on this, but I would like to see our utility attorney, he's here with the audience, listening to the whole thing. I would like him to be involved with us on making that decision and present it to them in a form of legal.
and I guess
Yeah.
if we need to, if you felt we need to, we could even do that in a closed meeting, because this decision's gotta be made by the board, whether we like that or not. So,
That's fine.
if we got into a closed session at the end of, or at a special meeting,
Yes.
and discuss this, and we can really tear it down and
Yes.
get a good look at it.
But I'd like to see our utility attorney being involved, because
Yes.
our response to, we appreciate really your presentation, it was awesome, thank you for that. But we would like to see the utility attorney prepare those forms in a legal thing that you need to sign on, because we might not live longer than the life of the water tower, but we wanna put something
I
that.
can guarantee you.
So, I see our utility attorney being involved with us throughout that process to respond with a legal work for them.
That's fine, can we get that scheduled for next week?
Yeah.
So it's, I don't know.
We'll get hold of you and see what the availability for everyone for next
For
week.
you guys, does that work?
Any night next week,
Yes, okay, good. We'll arrange it, okay.
and I would rather have it closed.
Yes, okay, we plan on close sometime next week. We'll give you the time and date. Okay.
Did I thoroughly
Thank
confuse
you,
everyone?
No.
No, you're, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much.
We
It's
appreciate it.
really big deal.
Thank you. Okay, now we have the B and C, which is approving the change order number 1 and change order number 14.
This is water.
Yeah. Do you see any problem? Maybe. Do you see any problem for approving B and C?
Is there a motion?
This is work completed, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'll make a motion.
Second.
Are we doing both at the same time?
Yeah.
This is B and C.
Moved by Craig, seconded by
I'll second.
Brian.
Oh, okay. How do you vote, Craig?
Aye.
Kim?
Yeah.
Brian?
Yes.
Okay, now we're gonna go back to
And
four.
Shirley?
So, gonna go back to 4C, approval of bills as presented. One of the bills that we approving has a engineering bill, not to undermine them or anything, but can we hold on this until this whole thing settled down? And that is Snyder and Association, $2,391.50.
And there's another one there for 14,000.
And there's another one, Snyder and
The other
Association.
one's that's the
Oh,
water
okay,
maker.
that's the water.
So we can approve the bill list with
With the exception of,
2,390.
Why not just table all engineering fees, go forward until this is resolved? Is that fair?
I think we need to take it on a case-by-case basis. So,
Okay, we need
need a
motion
motion.
to approve the bill.
I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll second.
How do you vote? Shirley?
Aye.
Craig?
Aye.
Kim?
Yep.
Brian?
Yeah.
And I vote
Okay,
Number 8 is IT services for utility and city, Panora Fiber Telco.
see, we talked about it at the last joint meeting and it was requested to get a hold of Mike Tillman, how the,
He did not respond.
I reached out to him and he said he's too busy with the story. But is there a way that we can post this on Facebook or the paper rather than just going with, I mean, our money goes from Stuart to Panora. There's local people here that have technical skills. Nate Westry, Eric Erling are both people local. I'm sure there's other people. If we could try to get them in here to keep utility taxpayer money in town versus, I'm just asking. I prefer to do that.
This is rates, not taxes.
What's that?
This is rates, not taxes.
What, same thing, same people.
No, it's not.
The taxpayers are paying water rates.
Well, but we have water customers who are not taxpayers.
Correct, but they're the same.
he's used to tax bills, he was
Yeah.
on the council.
Yeah.
So- Anyway, do you have anything with it?
Do you pay water and taxes?
Yeah,
The same person?
but we have customers who buy water from us who
Yeah.
do not pay taxes to the city of Stuart.
Okay, well, they probably pay rent, right?
No,
Okay, well, the renters pay a rent rate, which is pulled out of property taxes because they own rent.
we got the egg farm, we got the other farms.
Yeah.
Whether or not we have the same qualifications.
We're not gonna argue that right now.
Anyway, so long story short, is there a way we can get this to try to pull somebody local?
I don't have a problem.
You don't,
I think it's Nancy.
On behalf of the library, could we also be considered in with the city and utilities for needing IT?
Oh,
Yeah,
it'd be the whole.
the one was that they charge by the hours, so if you'd like to be,
I don't know if that would enhance any kind of a bit.
yeah, well,
I
whoever
think
we
the
hire,
any
you
city
will,
service is
you
what
will-
we're dealing with here.
yeah, you're more than welcome to have him help you. We just need to decide which would.
I'm not trying to
We need
hold
to
this
have-
up, I just,
I just need an idea,
I get it, I understand.
which one, we
What
want
are you
us to
asking
look
them
at
to do again?
but that,
Your PC breaks, you want to fix it, or is this more to set this stuff up, or?
it's stuff like that and our day-to-day operation, computers down and stuff like that.
So is there-
Basic ID, or basic IT stuff, not major things.
So is there a way?
and it's all called when you need it.
Yeah.
It's not all the time.
Yeah,
It's
he
only
works
when
an
they're
hour.
called.
Yeah,
You
right,
need
it's not, it's an
No,
on-call
it's
basis.
not, yeah, we work hourly, so we never be needed.
So,
When the computer goes down, you're out of business.
And you need it fast, you don't need it,
That's,
so somebody else
Yeah.
comes.
that's my concern about going with, hey, let's go with Bob down the street. Is Bob gonna be available during normal hours that when we
These would-
request to some reasonable extent versus going with a professional service that's what they do 24/7?
right, but we haven't even tried to get a professional service locally yet, that's all I'm asking.
Hey,
We
this is the first
reached out
time-
to Tierney.
We had Mike, and then Mike moved on, so we're trying to get it, like Rick saying, some official
Sure.
office where
Yeah.
the response is quick and all that
So
stuff.
we need to research it a little more.
Want us to go ahead,
This is the recommendation of Mike Morgan. He worked with these people to do quite a bit of the setup in City Hall, so they're already familiar with our equipment, they already know our needs. And I really feel comfortable with Mike's recommendation, but we can continue to look into it if you want us to.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you don't get any responses that are credible, then of course, but I guess if we don't give our own residents a chance to participate, then that's, turning their own money back to them is more optimal to me. But if we can try that, that's all I'd like to do. If we don't, we'll just roll the other.
we can,
We can keep our fingers crossed.
that's why I'm happy, that was the last 29 years. No, we can search, I would want to see local people.
Yeah, and you might not find somebody that, I think the availability thing is gonna be a critical.
It is.
But
Yeah.
at least when someone asks us, we're with Panora, we can point back to say that we did try to, and we advertised and all that.
Yeah, we will go ahead and paper. Okay, we'll add.
Okay, so we're gonna table that for more research. Okay, city administrator reports.
Okay, I'm gonna try to make it quick, it's been a long night for everybody, appreciate it. Okay, we start with the financial report, the first page, one say, we have 7.0 million for the van. Page 2, we go for the beginning of July to the end of October. It shows that from the beginning of July to the end of October, we experienced that 1.1 million loss, but that's because we had the water project involved. It takes a water project, that loss will became positive number of 463,000. Next page 3, we still within our budget. Our budget is 10 million. We only spent 647 so far. So budgeting wise, we're good. Food has
So we don't have to do extra pay.
yeah, no, but it's doing good and we kind of, yes, page 4 shows what the activities for month of October, from the beginning to the end, we show 195,000. If we take the water project out, we show plus number of 117. The next page for your information is a breakdown of our budget, sales tax, water, electric, insufficient fund, customer deposit. Then we'll go to the report, the delinquent account report shows 5 people with a check mark on the right hand. It shows 3 people on page 1. And we have another 2 people on page 2. That take us all the way to page 3 to end the report. The second report, the delinquent account being report, we have no change, and that will take us all the way to page 4. The next report is the payment agreement. We have added 3 people with a check mark on the right hand. The next report is paid in full payment agreement. We have another 5 people paid in full with a check mark on page 1. And page 2 has another one. That takes us all the way. Page 3 has another one. Only one left to be on page 5. That takes us to the end of the report on page 7. Next report is the budget billing, no change. Next report is the disease. We have 1 person who's diseased with a check mark on the right hand. Last report is offset with block review information. That takes care of it.
Okay, next item is public forum. Pat, do you have anything?
Well, I don't want to step on Ben's toes, because I know he's got something he wants to say, but
Okay.
I will say that our names are in, and we're just, it's cleanup work now, pouring concrete, fixing streets, and grading some of the dirt down in some people's yards and things of that nature, so it's moving right along. And,
Like you
it's-
said,
it's-
though, they had till next spring,
They
they're
do.
that far ahead.
They're way ahead of the schedule. So that's a good thing. Did you want to talk to him anything about what we were talking about the other day, or?
I don't know what that is.
Put him on the spot more than once.
Well, you covered what I was, in case any customers talks to anybody this fall. And so if anyone talks about their yard still having dirt humped up, that is gonna be taken care of. Just assure them that that is gonna be taken care of. There's a few people whose yards haven't been touched yet, so it is, that they're not done this year, and they do have some work to do in the
Well,
spring.
if they grade them off and settle anyway.
Yeah, I know some people are concerned that maybe they're done and their yard that's as good as it
You're
gets.
supposed to see it when they grade it.
Yeah.
Well, I think they seeded mine. It's humped up, but it's really soft. When I walk through it, I sink in a couple inches, which means it's gonna settle.
It'll settle over the winter.
Pat, what was your?
Oh, about loss.
Oh, well, our loss is way down. It's, that looks,
Well, that's
It's
the only
only
thing you're
been
hoping for.
yeah, it's only been the first month, so it's nice to have a few months to make averages it out. But our loss was 8% last month, which we haven't seen loss that low. DNR lets you see it under 10%. We're historically, we're anywhere from like 14 to 19% loss. This last month was 8%. That's really encouraging that we might have, this project has done what we hoped it does.
Well, and that loss was all potable water. So, I mean, we were losing money we paid to and we're not losing that anymore, so.
So far, looks good.
Yeah, that was all I wanted you to talk about. I didn't want to step on your toes, because I know it is, it's really good that we got down that far.
I had asked, but I'm not trying to undermine anything of what we had for discussions. I have a lot of respect for Forrest, and so I did ask him to come out in case there's questions. I have a lot of concern about, this isn't my background, and this obviously bothers me a lot. And if you're not comfortable getting or answering this question, that's fine. But out of that matrix that was on that board, is there a recommendation that you have, or
To get what we paid for.
I don't know enough information to
okay?
make a statement.
That's fine. I don't mean to put you on the spot about that. I'm just
That's what you did.
well.
Yeah, really sorry for us, but you did.
That's what trust gets you, I guess. Sorry. Sorry. That was it. I guess we'll have it.
Okay. I had Ash and Sarah put this in your packet
This
this
is good.
month.
This will be good to read.
I read this.
Yep.
I'm probably gonna read it again. Now, none of the technical stuff in here, I don't get any of that, but Jared has prepared a really, really good report. It's relatively easy to read and understand, and he didn't, I guess my takeaway from it is he didn't go out there and try to scare the heck out of us, but he put us on notice that, so, go ahead and read it, because it's not real difficult, and I couldn't get any of the technical stuff either, but I did get the gist of his report, and it's a very well written and very well done report, so. I have some questions for him when he comes back, so, and I'm sure you will too, once you read that report, so. Anything else?
Some guy named Jared.
Hey, John,
Yes,
I just want to say, I appreciate what you guys are doing with this whole water tower thing and really thinking it through instead of maybe making a rash decision. I know it's hard. I think it is owed to the citizens. I know you had one speak up here tonight to get what we paid for. And just a thought on my side is, if for some reason this valve was the way you guys chose to go, I would hope that you'd be looking at getting something back from Schneider, because this is not what we paid for. There's all these options of these other cities or tap tanks that, well, they designed it for those. And if we go with the valve, then why don't we get some sort of compensation back from Schneider for that, along with that, with the warranty, whatever.
that's a good point. I think that's something we'll certainly discuss in our.
And I'm not in favor of the valve, I'll just throw that out there. But if that's the way, it's just an option to look at, because it's.
So liquidated damages type of.
Yeah, if I took my car in someplace and I was supposed to get this, and I did get what they said, but they kind of jerry-rigged it a little bit, it still works, but, why should I pay the full price?
Well, I think that's what Ash is talking about.
Good.
Coming back, our response is gonna be a legal one.
Yeah, good deal. So I appreciate you guys taking the time to think that through.
So, anything else?
Yeah, I just got one thing. I want to thank Dustin for getting up the lights at the ball field on the old restrooms, and him and Jim are going to be working together and hopefully get the new poles or old poles wired up and at the soccer complex this year yet.
You haven't gotten that done already?
Not yet.
So you have to,